The loudest, the biggest, the brashest. New York is its own character in every play.
The bad thing about New York is the pressure. You're always under pressure.
Here are the stories about those plays. It's New York Accent with Damon Amendolara.
Welcome inside New York Accent, everybody. I'm DA, Damon Amendolara, as we look inside the careers and the lives of some of the great players that ever played, some of the coaches that coached here in New York. And our next guest was a standout wide receiver for the New York Jets throughout the 70s and 80s. He was a two-time Pro Bowler and a member of that 82 team that reached the AFC Championship game. He led the league in receiving yards as well in 1978 and has his name up at MetLife Stadium as a member of the Jets Ring of Honor. Joining us here on the show today is the great Wesley Walker. Wesley, how you doing?
It's a pleasure. I'm glad to be here with you today.
I'm so glad that you could join us as well. And our viewers on YouTube can see this amazing outfit that you got on. It's a Jets jersey and a hat as well with your number on it, 85, but it also has, is that pink and white stripes around that?
Absolutely. And there's a friend of mine, and she's a huge Jets fan. I'm glad to just have her as a friend. A pleasure to meet her. She actually came into Arizona to visit. We went to a Mets and Diamondbacks game together, and we've become really good friends. And she just sent this to me yesterday, so I'm wearing it to tribute to her. But also, she made my wife one, and she has the bling numbers, shiny stuff. I kind of wanted that too, but it's thing. And so the next chance I get, I'm hoping to be at 3 of the Jet games this year. And I will wear it in full force in tribute to her.
You also have pink glasses on to match the pink on your hat and your jersey. So you are really styling. I like the Wesley Walker drip, as the kids call it.
Well, I used to teach for the 25 years when I retired from the Jets, and I'd have kids in my gym class, and I'd always wear pink. And they would say, "Mr. Walker, you can't wear pink. Blue is the color." But I said I would wear pink because it's my favorite color. And then they started wearing pink. But pink is actually my favorite color. And
wow.
That's how I was talking to Liz one day. I was explaining to her I've been looking for a pink outfit for my wife and I. I've seen different jerseys made by different companies or people. And matter of fact, I was talking to Mangold's mother and then Darrell Revis' mother. And I couldn't connect with the people to do it. And we just had this conversation. Next thing I know, she puts this in the mail to me from my wife and I. And it just was awesome. And I'm just glad to be able to share that with you and her story also, because it's a tribute to her.
That's really cool. What a cool outfit. What a cool story. And behind you, you have a framed Wesley Walker jersey from your playing days. And that's the old school green and white jerseys, which I frankly think are the best jerseys in franchise history. And now they're going to go back and wear some throwback versions of those classics this season. Are you excited to see your old jerseys being worn again by the Jets?
It's funny that you even mentioned that, because when they made that announcement, I got a text from Wayne Corbett, and he said, "Hey, I was thinking about you. Hope you're going to come to some of the games, and they're going to have these little throwback colors, the Jets jersey, and I happen to like it." And this is even more important to me because my son actually made that up for me to go up on the wall. So I'm just proud of that. But I don't care what colors, what style, just the fact that being a part of the New York Jets family, that's the only thing that's ever important to me. So I'm hoping for a great season this year, and I'm actually looking forward to it. And I'm actually looking forward because I have 3 of my kids with 6 grandkids that I want to come out to see. But I moved out to Arizona a year and a half ago. And so I don't get a chance to get the flavor of what's really going on with the Jets, but I have an idea from some of my friends and Jet family to try to keep abreast of everything that's going on.
Well, I know you don't have to be very well connected to know that Aaron Rodgers is now a member of the Jets, and expectations are sky high. So how exciting is that for you to see a future Hall of Fame QB don the green and white?
I'm very excited. And the funny part, I've always enjoyed playing, and I had a hard time following sports. I like playing personally. And I went out to California to show my kids at University of California, Berkeley, where I went to college. I was inducted in the Hall of Fame. And I'm looking at the athletes there, and I'm like, oh, my gosh, I didn't know Aaron Rodgers went to Cal. And they had Marshawn Lynch, Deshaun Jackson, and, of course, Ron Rivera, Tony Gonzalez. And I had no idea. I had no idea Aaron Rodgers went to Cal. But I've had I try to explain to people, trying to get to know people, because you see people on TV like an Aaron Rodgers, and sometimes he's come off as being a little bit arrogant, some of his philosophies, and you don't get a chance to really know the person. And I'd always used to tell coaches, even trying to evaluate myself or other players, don't depend on a trainer or somebody in the organization. Get to know that player. And now that Aaron is there, and I've watched the Hard Knocks and the things that I've read, and this is so important. He's made a point to establish himself with all the players. He'll sit with people at different tables to get to know everybody, to bring people together, and that's leadership. Unfortunately for me, I always wondered what that would be like, because we had a lot of cliques on our team. Guys would have parties and wouldn't invite everybody. We weren't together like that as a family as we projected. So that is one of the things that I've been in awe with, the way the team is coming together. And that comes with the organization, with the coaching staff, developing that. And that's something that we didn't have. So I'm actually looking forward to it. And it's nice to see the camaraderie and guys being together.
How were the two starting quarterbacks you played with in terms of creating those bonds and camaraderie, Richard Todd and Ken O'Brien?
Loved them. I had a special relationship with both of them. I've had reporters, and I can think of Gary Myers. One day I was doing some type of Q&A, and I said that, I never played with Joe Namath. And I said, I will take Kenny O'Brien, Richard Todd over Joe Namath, John Elway, and Dan Marino. And they think I'm crazy. But when you play with guys that you develop a relationship and you see what they bring to the table and what they're capable of being, and it's just special when you're there together, being able to train with them, work out with them, and you develop a bond in the relationship. So, and I've had that with all of my quarterbacks. I mean, I had Steve Barkowski, who got drafted by the Atlanta Falcons in the #1 draft choice, Vince Ferragamo by the Rams, and I had this guy, Joe Roth, who passed away of cancer. He surpassed all their records. It was going to be a #1 draft choice, and they thought he was going to be the next coming of Joe Namath, and unfortunately he passed away. And Kenny O'Brien reminded me of him, just the relationship I had and the personality. But my guys, and even Matt Robinson, I can think of, who Richard Todd went down one year, he stepped in, and I went to the Pro Bowl that year, became most valuable player, and I will never forget that. That's something that a player dreams about, when your team, not only you go to the Pro Bowl, led the league in, I think, receiving yards, and I went to the Pro Bowl, and that's awesome. But to be voted by your teammates and amongst the league as most valuable player, that's just better. But my guys, Kenny O'Brien, Richard Todd, I'll put them over anybody in the league.
I'm surprised that you said that the 82 team, or the teams that you played on, had cliques, because it seemed like the 82 team was such a together team that ended up in the AFC Championship game. But even that team had its own cliques and not 100% bonding, huh?
Well, the thing with that, we also went on a strike that year. It was strike shortened season, and we just happened to be on fire, and we happened to click, and especially when we made it to the playoffs and stuff, But there was a big split with guys crossing the picket line. There was fights between some of the guys and Mark Gastineau. I think Marty Lyons and Joe Kleckel had crossed the picket line at first, because we all agreed as a team. And I was also acting as a union rep with Marvin Powell, and we were trying to keep it together and just trying to get the information as a team. And the reason that we were on strike is to try to help protections, to make things better. And I always think of guys like Kurt Sohn, the free agents, the players that don't get those opportunities, and we're trying to develop something for them. And I'm like a team guy, and that's what we were striking for. But unfortunately, we did have cliques on that team. When I first got to the Jets, and that was really disappointing for me, it was hard for me to develop relationships with people, because people just didn't get to know each other. And, you had separate cliques, black and white. They did their own thing. And it was hard to even have a trust. And I always wondered why we just didn't have that, because I went to University of California, Berkeley, and I was like a black hippie. So the racial thing never mattered to me. But we had this separate team with people where we weren't together. We didn't hang out with each other as a team, and that's what I always wish. Would we have been a better team? Would we have gone much further? I had a friend of mine, Jim Lazinski, said he went to a party And he said, where's everybody else? Some guys just weren't invited. But when you play this game, it's still a business, and you're still an athlete, and you do what you have to do. And you hope you come together collectively to, to get to the Super Bowl or get to the playoffs or just to win and just have a team. And you just do that, during the week of practice and the games. But again, I like what Aaron Rodgers has brought to the table, what the guys are developing amongst themselves. And we really didn't have that. And a lot of people don't really realize it and never really knew that. And there's a lot of times where I wanted to say certain things, and you got to watch what you say, but I just wish we could have developed that more. And I always felt like, man, what would it be like if we were really together as a team?
You had some successful seasons in the 80s. We had Joe Klecko on this show a couple of months ago, and he pointed out he did not feel like Joe Walton treated him as an adult. And he thought that was a problem inside the locker room. And he thought that Joe just wasn't the right leader for the team. Would you point to that same thing as part of the reason why you said there was cliques and maybe not everybody was on the same page in the 80s?
To me, it's important. As a coach, you should be able to see that with your team and want to bring people together. And I remember him make an announcement. He called out two players, and I won't mention the names. How can you have a party and not invite everyone? Joe Walton, and when I think about him, as you said, I'm glad you brought that up because he's the guy that I'm thinking of. Don't prejudge people because I think he kind of prejudged me. Get to know the player themselves and not worry about what management or what the trainer might think of you personally wise and what you can bring to the table. And a coach like a Robert Saleh has been able to bring that out and put that together. And that's what a coach should do. We had a great coach in Walt Michael. I didn't really get to know him till really after he retired, and he was a different person. He was very standoffish. But I agree with Joe that certain people and certain coaches, they don't treat you like men. And this is a grown men's business. And there's certain things you can and cannot do, but you have to tolerate it because they are running the show. Joe Walton was a great coordinator. There was a time where he motivated me, but when he became head coach, he had to try to control everything. He called the plays. Richie Kotite was our coordinator, but he never called the play. Joe ran everything from the front office with people trying to do everything, and they got away from what he needed to do as a coach, but he ran everything. And there was a point where he became a demotivator, and I don't think he really realized that, but a lot of people left with a bad mouth in their, taste in their mouth. And I think Kenny O'Brien was a part of that. Richie Todd, there's certain things that had happened, and you'd have to talk to each one of those guys personally. I know the end of my career, in one of my last years, I felt he wasn't in my corner, and there are certain things where you think that he should do or approach you in a certain way, and he didn't do that and very standoffish, and it just was a turnoff, but there's nothing you can do about that. And I wish we could have had a personal discussion about certain things, but I'm not sure he would have listened to that. A lot of coaches don't. They do what they want to do. You never know. Herm Edwards was a teammate of mine. Paul Hackett was the coordinator there with Herm Edwards. Paul Hackett was a father to me in college. And when they came to the Jets, they were different people. It's like I didn't even know them. And I remember babysitting Paul Hackett's kids, and it's really ironic. Nathaniel Hackett is a head coach, and I had him on my lap. And I remember in New Hampshire with his brother David, and I would see him on Hard Knocks, and he's like a grown man. He looks like he could be a player, but I'm happy for him. But people change, and they have their own mindset. Some you don't understand. I had a guy, Dan Henning, who put me at another level, but he became head coach down in Atlanta, and there was a high-profile player, Mike Kent, all-pro guy. He hated him. So we don't know what happens to players. They change their attitudes, and I want people to say the same, that I knew him from the beginning, but unfortunately, some people don't do that. And I hope the day I die, and people can always say he never changed, but that's something personal, and I'd hope that the coaches will keep this thing going with the New York Jets, because I think it's so positive to bring people together, and that's so important.
Did you feel like Herm Edwards changed when he got to the Jets?
Oh, absolutely. He was my teammate at Cal, and when he came to the Jets, I remember we had a cocktail party, and I was actually doing a pre and post game show to try to do interviews. And I thought Paul Hackett would at least reach out to him because I was really close to Paul Hackett and his wife, Elizabeth. Wonderful, wonderful people. But I went to visit him way back when he became coordinator in San Francisco. And he changed as a person with his just a little bit on the arrogant side. And Herman was the type of guy that he could tell you something, but you didn't know if it was the truth or not. And he just wasn't the same guy. You know, not that he was probably the same guy, but he knows how to work the room or whatever. But personally, I felt that as a teammate, that, as a matter of fact, I remember calling him to congratulate him because I never thought the Jets would hire a black coach. He was wonderful in his press conference. I was very impressed. I called him. He never called me back. He probably thought I wanted a job or something. And I know a lot of people that were close to him that he hasn't called back, and it's just a whole different thing. But when he was with the Jets, there was no relationship, and I didn't have one with Paul Hackett. I really didn't go out of my way, and they didn't either. And it was kind of disappointing to me.
Because you were teammates with Herm back in college at Cal?
Yeah, and he ended up leaving Cal. I think he was there my first 2 years, and he helped recruit me along with Vince Ferragamo. And then I don't know what happened between him and the coaching and the whole staff itself, and then he ended up leaving, going to San Jose State.
Tell me about college when you're a self-described black hippie. You're at Cal, which is a very progressive and at times rebellious campus. You're there in the 70s, which is a time of tumultuous. It's an era in the country where you've gone through Vietnam, you're still going through Vietnam, the tail end of that. There's a lot of black power movements as well. And California's in the middle of kind of a total revolution as well, with people moving in and everything kind of changing. So what is your experience like on the campus at Cal in the 70s?
Well, I told UCLA I was going to sign with them, but they wanted me as a running back in the wishbone. And they said I was going to start. I was going to be one of the halfbacks. And I started thinking, man, I'm not a running back and being a hit people, block people, some of these big old guys. And then I told USC I was going to come there because I'm from California and LA. And I didn't think I was going to get a chance because John McKay was the head coach. His son was there, and they had Len Swan, and they just made the rule you can start as a freshman. And I said, hey, man, I'm going to play. I'm good enough to play right now. And I went up to, I didn't even know anything about Cal. And I felt that they had lied to me during the recruiting process. So this coach, Ron Hudson, who was the recruiter and wide receivers coach, came out one more time to visit me. And he made this nice scrapbook. And I have it to this day to convince me just to take a trip because I missed they had the top athletes that came, a blue chip day. And so I went up there. I had Herm Edwards, Vince Ferragamo, who recruited me because I was in the same division in high school with Vince Ferragamo. We were like rivals, Banning High School. Even Freeman McNeil went to Banning High School. And I just fell in love with number one, education was so important to me. It was one of the top schools for that. So that was first and foremost for me. I just fell in love with just people that could express themselves, black or white or whatever. And I was a guitar player, and I thought I was going to be the next Jimi Hendrix. My personality. And then I met some good people while I was up there, and I just fell in love with the campus and the school itself. And I know my parents thought I was out of my mind when I decided to go because they had actually lied to me. But I just went there because of the education and the fact that you could be yourself. And hey, if you want to protest the war, you could do that. My dad served in Vietnam. I mean, I was really angry at Richard Nixon, but I met Richard Nixon in New York City, went to his house at cocktail party, sat with him at a Mets game, one of the nicest guys you can ever meet. And I'm like, oh my God, here's the guy that I hated at one time. But that's the one thing you don't know until you meet someone. You have this aura, you see things on TV, you hear about them, and personality-wise, or even if you see something with their opinions on TV, instead of getting to know people, that's another deal. And you really have to get to know somebody before you make that decision or assessment of someone.
How did you get the invite to Richard Nixon's home?
It's funny. And he's my best friend. He played for the Jets. Bruce Harper, one of the best ever to play for the Jets, all-purpose guy. I mean, I used to love watching. He should have been a starter in the backfield, but he could do it all. Punt returns, kickoff. I have this thing, man. You're the coldest of the cold. You're a bad mofo. I love this dude. He's the godfather of my youngest son, and we talk to each other often. I go out to see him. He doesn't live too far from my two kids in New Jersey, but he has a friendship with Richard Nixon's security personnel guy. And he invited us. And I remember I went with Dave Jennings, Nick Bonacani, and I can't think of who else, and Bruce Harper, of course. We went to a cocktail party at his house, and I don't even know why we were there, but I had a chance to go with Bruce to a baseball game, to sat with him and chit chat. And I had a nicest time, and I always felt bad. I never told him that I hated him, you know. I didn't think my dad was going to come back from Vietnam, and I was heartbroken. And when he did come back, I was so thrilled. And my dad passed away at the age 40 of a heart attack, and he never got the chance to see me play pro. He didn't even get a chance to see me play in the college. He came up to the school one time to make sure I didn't play hurt, just to check on me. But he was a proud father. I still remember when I won the city championship, I ran like 9.9 and 100. And I came back to tell him, and he missed the race, but he came up there and I said, Dad, I just ran 9.9. And he said, what? He was so thrilled. But I always dedicated my career and my success. If it wasn't for my parents and they taught me a value of an education, I don't think I'd be where I am today. But it's also surrounding yourself with good people. And I'm here married to my wife, and I have a good support system. I'm waiting on my granddaughter to come here, which I look forward to every day. And I've been blessed. But it's the people that I have developed relationships in New York, like Liz Mueller, who sent this journey. I'm very dear, but I got another big fan, Claudio. He runs his Gotham City crew out there. And there's another guy, Frank West. He wears my Walker 85 jersey, and I try to make a point to come back and see everybody. There's an Alex Klein there. They're big Jet fans, but they've come friends, and so I'm glad to support them in any way I can too.
How would it feel to see the Jets win a Super Bowl?
I would love it. And, you know, I've had certain feelings where I felt they've had a chance, but this year I feel that they really have a chance. I have an utmost respect for Robert Saleh. I actually went to the Jets training camp last year by myself, and somebody must have told him in the organization. I deal with Olivia Sherman there, and she must have told him I was going to be at the camp, and he came right up to me. But he said, I was reading something about you, about being blind in one eye, and we had a nice chit chat. And I just happened to be wearing a shirt from a guy, Bruce Reeder, who was another Jet fan that I didn't get a chance to meet. I met his wife now, but he sent me this all brakes, no gas, all gas, no brakes. And I was wearing that shirt when I came in. And I will never forget Bruce Reeder for doing that for me. But it was ironic that he came right over to me, and I happened to be wearing that shirt at the training camp. But I just had this good feeling about him. And I did a podcast where they're talking about coaches. Who would you have? And they've had Parcells, we've had Richie Kotite, and I've had Todd Bowles, who I really respected because he always tried to bring the former players back, welcome there. Because we had Bill Parcells, where some guys would fight to get in training camp. The Giant players could come in there anytime they wanted, and the Jet players couldn't do that. So that was another thing with the loyalty standpoint. But I don't feel that way with Robert Saleh. I like the direction. He's brought these kids together, and you can see it, especially with the leadership with Aaron Rodgers brought to the table to bring guys in together. And that's something I wish we had. And whether, you had success or not, I think that's just very important. And I think for the first time, the Jets, barring injury, that's always a big factor, they have a real good shot at it this year.
Oh, man. So at training camp under Bill Parcells, old Giants players were allowed on the field, but Jets alumni weren't.
Nope. I'm telling you, Bobby Jackson, one of my dearest friends who made me where I am today, we used to be some fierce competitors. He was fighting with they had this guy, and I wish I could remember his name. He was very rude. And I remember being at a charity function. He's pushing me in the back, and I'm like, I looked at him. I wanted to hit him. And guys would be fighting. Bobby Jackson would be fighting with him. And it was to the point where fans, even outside the training camp in Hofstra, would see this and would be arguing with him. And it was a joke. And it was like really bad. And we didn't have carte blanche. I remember Richie Kotite, and I was doing preseason, the post-game and pre- and post-game show. And I remember I brought my family there to practice. And then Kathy Reed, the secretary at the time, said, Wesley, Richie just made this new rule. You have to call 24 hours in advance. And it was almost like an insult. And I also tell Connie Carberg, who's a big Jets fan, who worked for the Jets, the first female scout. And I remember there was a point where they regulated her to the stands, and she used to be able to come and sit with the guys in training camp. We did that all throughout my career. And it's weird. And I know there's some other people that are in the industry working for the Jets, and they could be in security or whatever it may be. And if somebody comes in and they bring their own people in, you're just out the door and there's no loyalty, and it's not a good feeling. But that's just the business part of it, and that's the part I do not like. But I hope they develop more of that to make guys want to come back to feel more welcome.
Yeah, I don't blame you for feeling that way. Well, there's a lot of Jets fans that will be watching this and listening to this, and I want to update them. You've always been kind enough to join me on my show on CBS Sports Radio, but for the Jets fans watching, listening right now, tell us about Wesley Walker and how you're doing and how's life right now in California, or Arizona, you said.
I'm really good. I'm in Arizona, and I'm a California boy, and I get a chance to, my mom passed away last year, and I'm about 3 hours and 15 minutes from Palm Springs, and I have a first cousin, Dennis, who lives, there in Palm Springs. So I get a chance to go see them and my brother. And, I do have some other cousins and relatives, but I'm just really close to now my brother who's left and my cousin Dennis. And my wife, she's always got something in the fire. And before we left New York, she developed a business where we were assisting the elderly. And I had a ball doing that. And I have several injuries that I'm nursing. I just had my second back surgery in December, my knee replaced in February, and there are certain days. I've had my neck fused. I've had my back on 6 levels fused. I need to get my other knee done. I've had Achilles done, both my shoulders, and 7 days I'm just hurting. So I used to watch these elderlies all the time, and as you get older, and I'm 68 now, so I'm on that back 9 right now, so I'm appreciating everything that I have right now because you never know when it's going to end. I lost to Marvin Powell, who's my age. I got drafted with Jim Sweeney, and they had heart attacks during the same week. And so you're looking towards the future. You don't know how much time you have left. But my thing now with my wife, we've developed a business. Like I said, we used to help the elderly where they need assistance with the doctors. Sometimes they don't have the wills and the trust, and they give them having to set up the financial part for their families or just getting to doctors and whatnot. We're kind of doing the same thing here, but only we're doing it for families with kids, and we're just really busy. My wife just goes on all these apps. She created this business spur of the moment, and we're spur of the moment. I haven't been home in 3 weeks, and there's a real need for people that need their kids taken care of, or like we have one blind family. The couple are blind. They've had several operations with their little girls with 5 and 7. And so I actually took them to a blind convention, and, they obviously can't drive them. I just went to the hospital to pick them up yesterday because she was in a lift to go someplace, and they got blindsided by hitting the back. And so I had to pick them up to the hospital with the kids, and we take care of their kids during the week also. I have my granddaughter, but yet we do a lot of for families. There's a lady friend of ours who's got a 2 or 3 week old baby and a 2-year-old, and the husband's a doctor, so they need people to house it when they go away, or their kids being taken care of. We have a lady that's a stewardess, and we take the kids overnight or whatever it takes. And a lot of times I'm house sitting because they don't want to leave the house to anybody, and they have these pets or whatever. But we're just so busy. And the thing is with my life, and there's a saying by Mark Twain, when you figure out your life, the most important time in your life is when you're born and when you figure out what you're here to do. And I guess I'm here to serve others because that's all I'm doing right now, taking care of kids, being with people, helping people. And I'm enjoying it. It's a lot. I still want to be retired where I could just do my own thing because I love the fish. It's a little bit too hot out here. The last 2 months, it's been in 3 digits, hot heat. I've never had heat like this before in my life. And I like to fish, and I love music. I like to relax. I love movies and every chance I get. But we've been so busy, I haven't been able to do a lot of that. But one day I'm going to really be retired because I retired from the Jets. I was lucky enough to, like I said about my education being number 1, fell back on that, got my master's degree out of Fordham University in education, went into teaching, did that for 25 years, and I loved every bit of it with the kids. I do miss that. So I have this special thing and bond with kids and children. I love doing it. So I'm kind of doing the same thing with other little siblings right now, too, with the kids and children. And I'm loving it. I'm just too busy right now. I haven't even been to sleep. I kind of had this wait on my granddaughter. I just had a little cat nap, and I told my wife yesterday, I am freaking exhausted right now. And I'm just getting ready for my granddaughter now. So I was looking forward to seeing you and doing this today. And like I said, this is a tribute to Liz Mueller today.
Well, thank you so much for finding time amongst the craziness of your life right now. Wesley, you've always been so generous with your time, so thank you so much for finding it.
I appreciate it, and you can call me 24/7. I'll do what I can. You know that. So I appreciate you even having me.
I thank you. And when if I do see Herm Edwards, we're going to tell him that he owes you a phone call.
Yeah, and it's funny. I have a teammate of mine who calls me anything that's because there was an article just written out, and they were using his words against him in this scandal. And I went out to Arizona to see Herman with my friend, teammate in college, Dallas Hickman, who's a huge fan. He's an Arizona fan. He coached football, and he talks all the time. He could talk football and different things, and he just texted me this article. So we were just talking about that yesterday, too. But I try to keep up. And I don't mean to belittle anybody. I'm always happy. Like my teammate, Joe Walton, he was like one of my MVPs. This guy was... Nobody could cover him, one-on-one. Mark Gastineau, Al Toon, Bruce Harper, Frew McNeil, Kenny O'Brien. These guys were all pros and could play with anybody. My guys in practice made me what I am today. And we could play with anybody. We just didn't get those accolades. So I'm glad to be able to promote my teammates and my fans and my friends and my Jets family, period. And I'm just loving life, and I've just been really, really blessed, and I thank God for that.
A former first-team All-Pro, multi-time Pro Bowler as well, and a member of the Jets Ring of Honor. Will be coming back to New York for a couple of games this year as well. The great Wesley Walker. Wesley, you're the best, man. Thank you so much.
Okay, there's 3 games in a row. I'll be back there in New York in November through December 11th.
I love it.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoy New York Accent, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more episodes like this one. Also, if you want to watch more episodes of New York Accent, check out our playlist and let us know what you think in the comments below. Thanks again for watching.